My name is Susan Doran and I'm the Professor of Early Modern History at the University of Oxford, and I'm also a Senior Research Fellow at Jesus College and St Benet's Hall. I'm going to give a series of lectures on the reigns of Edward VI and Queen Mary, and my first lecture is going to be on the religious policy of Edward VI. England under Edward VI became Protestantized. The government followed a clear and coherent line of policy which brought about religious changes in theology, liturgy, and the look of the English churches. As far as theology was concerned, Edward VI's government and ministry introduced justification by faith alone. This was a Lutheran doctrine that was accepted by a range of Protestant churches throughout Europe. It could be seen particularly in the preamble to the Act abolishing chantries, which were institutions that gave masses for the dead. And it was said in the preamble that the practice of praying for the dead was superstitious because purgatory did not in fact exist. The government also introduced changes to the liturgy. 2 new prayer books were introduced during the reign of Edward VI. Both of them were English. Both of them drew for their prayers and for their readings from the Old and New Testament. This had a Protestant feel. The most important change in both prayer books came to the prayers and the ceremony associated with Mass. In the first prayer book, the Protestantization of the ceremony was that there was no elevation of the host, which implied that the priest was not consecrating the bread and the wine to turn it into the body and blood of Christ. But at the same time, the words that the priest used when delivering the bread and wine to the laity implied that there was in fact a corporal presence. So there were kind of mixed messages in this first prayer book surrounding the Mass. In the second prayer book, however, it was absolutely clear that there was a Protestant understanding of the ceremony. What was more, it was no longer Lutheran, but it was based on the understanding of the Swiss Reformed churches that there was no corporeal, physical presence of Christ in the bread and the wine. This was made clear in the wording that the minister, no longer called a priest, used when delivering the bread and wine to the laity. And what is more, there was introduced rather late a rubric which was placed in black and so was called a black rubric, whereas the rubric was normally in red, which made it absolutely clear that people, if they indeed kneel at the time of receiving the bread and wine, were not doing so in adoration of the presence of Christ. So there was now no Mass in the English prayer book after the second prayer book of 1552. The main change otherwise in the Edwardian church was that the interiors of those churches looked entirely different. There was a program of iconoclasm that was led by the Edwardian government. Statues were removed, very often destroyed. The roods, the big crucifixes in the churches that the laity would always see when they were facing towards the altar, they were pulled down. Altars were replaced with tables. It was a very much barer church that they would see, and that impression was intensified by the whitewashing of the walls of the churches, which had previously been decorated with scenes from the Bible. So the Edwardian Reformation was deep, and it was dramatic, and it was drastic. Why did it take place? Well, it was not inevitable. Henry VIII did not in any way think or plan for these kinds of changes to be introduced on his death. Yes, he had Edward educated by men who were evangelicals, but he had no notion of their firm beliefs in many of the Protestant articles of faith. He just saw them as the best scholars that he had to hand. At the same time, Henry VIII put into prison the two leading conservatives at the end of his reign because he wanted them out of the way. Howard, the Duke of Norfolk, was in prison on a charge of treason. Bishop Gardiner, the Henrician bishop, was there because he had resisted one of the demands made by Henry. And Henry probably feared that in the reign of his son, Gardiner would perhaps seek to take the church back to Rome and put it under papal rule. But he had no notion, Henry, that the Mass would be removed, and I think he would probably have been horrified at the thought. So the people who came to power at Edward's reign were mainly evangelicals. Edward Seymour, who was the uncle of Edward VI, became Lord Protector Somerset, and he pushed forward, with the aid of Cranmer, a programme of religious reform. Was he a committed evangelical? We can't be certain. Historians in the past thought not. Most historians today believe that he really did believe in evangelical reform. There's no question that evangelical reform was beneficial to the men in power. They were able to put their hands on church plate and church lands. They were able to reward allies and ensure that there was money available to fight against the Scots and the French if that proved necessary. So financial and political advantages were there, but at the same time there were religious beliefs held deeply by men like Cranmer, and also some lesser men that we know about who were part and parcel of the regime. Elizabeth I's Secretary of State, William Cecil, was working with Somerset, and he was a committed evangelical, as was Thomas Smith, who was later to be an influential figure under Elizabeth. So Edward's religious reform was a movement that was later condemned as being led by carnal gospelers. It also did not go as far as some of the theologians wanted. For example, canon law was not reformed because of the opposition of some of the politicians. But nevertheless, it was devastating, and we're going to see shortly what effect it had in the parishes.